So a message that I've been getting a lot ever since I started really diving into channeling last year has all been about perception. We have the power to choose how we perceive things in life. This is a great way to shift out of comparing yourself to others. Just imagine what your life could be like moving forward if you were able to shift your perception when things go wrong. Interpret it in a way that makes sense for you. Welcome back to my channel, friends. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you've been with me for a while, you might notice that the channel has shifted a bit. And that is because I am shifting a bit, or a lot. I will still be creating content about healing your relationship with your body and food, but it will be focused more so in respect towards being on the journey towards reclaiming the self. And that as sort of an entry point to that journey. Because this channel will be more of an expression of me and my own journey as I take you with me on my personal journey towards reclaiming the self. So I'll be sharing things with you that I'm thinking about and working on, things that have been working, not working. And much of the topics that I'm talking about actually stem from my automatic writing and channeling sessions. So if you watched my last direct-to-camera video, which you can check out right here, I will also link it in the description, I have been really following the alignment in life. What feels aligned, following that, noticing what feels misaligned, and if I can, moving away from that. And so as I talked about in my last video, I wasn't sure if I felt aligned with making more videos, and I wasn't. But I did, after taking a bit of a break from content creation, I felt really called to write. And so if you want to check out my latest musings, they are all on my blog, on my website, which again, I will link in the description. My intention is to also turn a lot of those blog posts into YouTube videos for all of my auditory learners out there. And this very video is my maiden voyage with this new approach. So let's dive in. So a message that I've been getting a lot ever since I started really diving into channeling last year has all been about perception. I mean, there's been a lot, but perception, especially how we perceive challenging situations or hardships, has been really, really coming through strongly. And so I've been really thinking about how our perception creates our reality. And so what I mean by perception, right? How we perceive ourselves, how we perceive other people to be, how we perceive their actions, their inactions, the stories, right, that we create around it, how we perceive our situations, and how we perceive, I know I said perceive a lot, planting seeds, friends, growing a garden, but how we perceive these, it directly impacts our experience of them, right? For example, let's say someone doesn't text you back, and in your mind, you perceive it that they're angry at you, and you create this whole story about how you did something and they're angry at you and you've lost the friendship. Whereas on their end, maybe they're just really busy, they didn't see it, right? If we could have perceived in that way of, oh, I guess maybe they're just busy and they didn't see it. They'll text me when they see it, when they're ready to text back. Very different experience than perceiving it as you did something and they don't like you and the friendship is over, right? So along those lines, right, if we perceive a situation to be challenging, which has been a lot of the messaging in my channeling, it's going to be challenging. If we perceive it, say, as an opportunity to learn and grow, it may still feel hard and challenging, but our experience of it will be very, 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 very different. So today we're going to explore how we can maybe consider beginning to shift our perception when we feel like things are going wrong in our life. And hopefully by the end of the video, you'll know why I'm putting wrong in quotes. Let's think about when something goes wrong in our life, right? It generally means, not always, but generally means that it's not going the way we intended it to go. And that right there, it implies that there's an inherent right way or ways for it to go, and then everything else has to be wrong, right? And if, and often when, it doesn't go one of the right ways, we perceive it as then going wrong. Now, I don't know about all of you, but things don't usually go according to plan in my life. It's also one of the reasons why I'm trying not to plan my life so much. And that, my friends, is a video for another day. So be sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this content and you want to go on a deeper dive with me on my own personal journey towards reclaiming the self, so that you can also not be so alone in your own journey towards reclaiming the self. So as I've been sitting with this and thinking about it, it got me wondering if our perception creates our reality. Can we shift the way we perceive something? And if so, can that and how can that impact our lives and our overall well-being? So we just briefly talked about the situation with not getting a text back from a friend, right? Now, on a grander scale, do you know of anyone, or maybe you personally, something happened in your life? You lost a job, you didn't get the promotion, your partner left you, right? You got sick. Something that is, in the collective, perceived to be as not going the right way. Things are going wrong, right? Oh, they lost their job. Oh, they broke up with them. Which I do feel like things are shifting. People aren't seeing it in that way so much anymore. Which again, also, as I will say again in this video, this is not an original thought, friends. It's not an original thought. Okay? This is just me explaining how I'm interpreting it and using it in my life. And again, it may or may not resonate. I invite you to take this information. If it resonates even a little bit, interpret it in a way that makes sense for you. Okay? This is all about each one of us and our own unique journeys. Because again, as I'll say again in this video and many, many, many other videos, each of our experiences, each of our journeys will be unique to each one of us. And there's a special power in honoring that and not comparing it to others. So truly honoring our own unique journey, figuring out what works for us at this point in time, also knowing that it might not always work, and also being flexible enough to notice that and to shift accordingly. But I'm going to get back to the regularly scheduled program here. So oftentimes, right, something happens and we perceive it as going wrong. But how many times have you in your own life experienced it, or know someone else where things went wrong and in time they realized, wow, that was the best thing that ever happened to me? Now, I don't want to speak for everyone when I say this, because I don't think every single person will resonate with this, but I do know a lot of people in which it does. And at least speaking personally, because I can only truly speak for myself, that when I look back at all the events in my life that I used to hem and haw about, of like, why is this happening to me? That felt very, very, very hard and insurmountable at times. I look back and I am incredibly grateful for all of it. Now, I'm not denying that it wasn't challenging at the time, but looking back, I perceive it now as making so much sense for my personal journey. So here's a real life example in my own life of how I took an experience, and it is an extreme and sensitive one, so bear with me. But this comes from my experience with 9/11, which, interestingly enough, when I sat down to write the blog post for this, I realized that I was working with this idea of perception and our reality and our experience for a very, very long time. I'm just doing it now in a very, very different way. But I felt called to name that, to hopefully plant the seed, because I love planting seeds. I just wanted to plant the seed for anyone out there that might be doubting themselves, that maybe you aren't actively doing the work. And hopefully by the end of this video, at least one person out there might shift their perception of themselves and truly honor the work that you're currently doing on your journey towards reclaiming the self. Whatever aspect of the journey you're on towards that, because all the work you're doing is part of that journey. Okay, so the real life example is from 9/11, and that was my 6th day of college. And I started off my college career at Pace University, which is a few blocks away. And so thankfully, I was far enough away to be safe, and I was close enough to literally feel it and see it all happen. And I remember hearing so many stories about people that were running late that day. And it's interesting, right? Because I don't know about you, but when I'm running late, I perceive things as going wrong. And so I imagine that we're perceiving that morning as things going wrong. I'm running late, I'm gonna miss the meeting, only to realize that being late, that this experience that felt like everything was going wrong was such a blessing, right? It was perceived one way that morning, and then an hour or two later, being perceived as a blessing in disguise. And the fact that we even have a saying, blessing in disguise, again, speaks to the fact that what I'm saying is not anything new. This is not an original concept, friends. I'm just sharing my interpretation and perception of it at this time in my journey. And my intention here is to create space to see this example in a way that maybe can expand your mindset into one of openness and trust, especially when we perceive that things are maybe not going in the direction that we want them to go in. We'll talk about wants versus needs down the road as well, so stay tuned for that. But I want to share how I took this example, very extreme example, I know, and applied it to my everyday life. Now, I also want to preface this by saying that it took me a very long time to cultivate this mindset, and it did not come easily, nor did it work every single time. So back when I lived in New York City and I would miss the subway or the bus, I would try to tell myself I wasn't meant to be on that one. Now, personally, I would imagine terrible things happening to me if I caught it, which I would not recommend to anyone. It will not serve you in your greater good. And if you are doing that, if part of your anxiety does that for you, like mine did, you're not alone. But I would tell myself, I wasn't meant to be on that one. I'll catch the next one and I'll get there when I'm meant to. Now, again, thankfully, my anxiety always made me super duper early for everything. So this approach was also maybe more accessible for me than it would be someone that maybe tends to run late. Again, speaking to the fact that everyone's journey is going to look different. We have to honor our unique journey. And the main point of this is that we have the power to choose how we perceive things in life. Now, I will say for many people struggling with mental health and imbalanced nervous systems, it certainly does not feel like a choice. And I truly want to recognize that, because if someone said this to me at different points in my life, I would have probably gotten really, really angry. So I want to honor and recognize that. And as you know, I believe that there's a lot of power in planting seeds. So if you are on the struggle bus, can you hold space, any amount, for the possibility that this could, in fact, maybe, if it resonates at any level, be your truth at some point? That you can feel empowered enough to choose how you want to perceive a situation, another person, yourself, etc. I know I've said this before in this video, and I'll say it many, many other times, but please remember that your journey will likely look different from everyone else's. And again, that is the point. We're all so unique with unique circumstances to navigate. And this is a great way to shift out of comparing yourself to others. It's all interconnected, friends. My personal belief is that there is no one way to do this work. As the saying goes, there are many paths up the mountain. And when I look back at my life, as I said earlier, I'm so very grateful for everything that I've gone through. It made me who I am, or rather, it helped me realize or remember who I am. And though I said realize or remember, I'm still realizing and still remembering, because I'm still very much in this journey. But I was able to reclaim and continue to reclaim who was always there, just hidden under a land full of thrust upon me, and frankly, that I thrust upon myself. Please also know, it took a lot of work to get here. And just like everyone, I'm very much still a work in progress. This is, again, why I want to build this channel, this community, so that we can be there for one another on our own unique journeys as we move through this journey of reclaiming the self, or however you want to phrase it or label it. Doesn't really matter how you name it. The journey is the journey. And if you hate the word journey, that's okay too. And I will say, I've wondered what my experiences would have been like if I had gone through them with this sense of empowerment in my choice of how I want to perceive it to be. Now, please don't mistake me, because I am not a fan of regrets or playing the what if game. I say this as an invitation to myself, a work in progress, and all of you watching this, that just imagine what your life could be like moving forward if you were able to shift your perception when things go wrong. How might that shift your experience in life? And fun fact, because the universe is good like that, as I've been trying to implement this perceptual shift into my life more consciously, I've had a number of opportunities to help me with this effort. It has not been easy, but what it has been incredibly helpful for my overall well-being on a psychological, physical, and spiritual level. And this, friends, is why I feel so called to share it with you. I know on my journey, a lot of these ideas and concepts I intellectualized for a long time, and it's not until I really begin to embody it personally that it begins to click. So if this is resonating and you're comfortable, I do invite you to try the following. So, another fun fact, if the shot looks different, my camera overheated as I was shooting this. So rolling with it, perceived it as an opportunity to check what I filmed to see if it was okay without filming the entire thing. So I took it as an opportunity. So trying to practice what I preach here, friends. And what I love is that when I'm talking about it or working with it, I'm usually given an opportunity to implement it. And I think that also is just a great opportunity to see, am I actually embodying this? Am I actually living this? Am I actually seeing if it is a tool for my greater good? And so, as I was saying before my camera overheated, I need to embody things to really, really begin to implement them. So if it's comfortable, I do have the following sort of thought experiment. I have another one coming up down the road in this video. If this is resonating at any level and you want to move from intellectualizing it into embodying it, you can follow along. If not, please skip on through to the next chapter and I'll see you there. But if you want to continue with this thought exercise, I invite you to find a comfortable posture for your body in this moment, whatever that means. And now imagine or recall the feeling that you get when something goes wrong. So maybe you remember a time that something went wrong. If so, I do suggest doing something that doesn't have a lot of charge to it, so you can really be present to it through the lens of the observer, right? Just watching it as an observer. And now as you connect to it, imagine perceiving it, this experience, with a sense of openness and trust, any amount. And as you do this, recognize all the feelings, the emotions, the sensations arising with that same sense of openness. Not trying to judge it, not trying to change it, just simply allowing it to be as it is. And as you do this, can you hold space and compassion for yourself in recognizing that, yeah, that happened, or this is happening and it sucks. Holding compassion for that. while reminding yourself that it's also not clear why this is happening. And I'm going to move into a place of openness and trust that at the very least, I might grow in some way. Knowing that it might just be 1%, it might be 1/4%. But the more you practice this, the more it can become your truth if it resonates. So take some time now and just check in with yourself. See how this is landing for you. It's also okay if it's not. This does not have to resonate for you at all. Again, we're just building a sense of awareness of what feels aligned in this moment in my life and what doesn't. What's working for me and what's not working for me. Good. Okay, and then letting go of the practice as we move on to the next chapter in this video, which is all about conditioning. So earlier I said, hopefully at the end of the video, you'll understand why I'm putting wrong in quotations. And a lot of it has to come down to conditioning and programming, because as I started sitting with this, I also started thinking about why it is that we label things as bad or wrong, why this is bad and this is good. And I talk about this a lot as an eating disorder dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor. If you're unfamiliar with my video, I have an All Foods Fit video that talks about this very thing, about labeling foods as good or bad. But we label things, right, as good, as bad, as wrong, as right, and it immediately infuses it with a particular charge, right? And since we collectively agree that certain things are wrong or bad, we are then conditioned to perceive it that way. That we can't just arbitrarily label something as that is always good and that is always bad, especially when we agree to it as a collective, because that, again, it takes away our empowerment for us to perceive it in the way that makes sense to us. For example, getting real personal in this video, losing my father was actually the best thing that happened in our relationship. We have a wonderful connection and relationship now that he's in spirit, but in real life, it was really, really challenging. And so oftentimes if I tell people, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, it's really the best thing that happened for us. Yeah, it was hard on many levels, but I perceive it in a very different way than other people might. So again, just an example of how every single person is on their own unique journey and will perceive something very, very, very different. And you can see that too in certain current events, politics, right? Everyone is perceiving it in their own way through their own lens, which again is something to question of, why am I believing this? Was I programmed to believe this? Was I conditioned to believe this? And I'm not telling you to believe anything. I'm just saying, where is that information coming from? Where are those beliefs coming from? There's a certain empowerment of really asking yourself, do I believe this to be true? Is this my truth? Again, another conversation for another day. But when we collectively agree that certain things that are going to happen, right? People are going to get sick. People are going to lose their jobs, etc. When we perceive it collectively as that event is bad, that event is not, things not going your way, then it generates a lot of fear in our society, because if certain things are inevitable, we're going to lose loved ones, we're going to go through hard times, we're going to go through challenges. If we perceive that to be bad or wrong, it generates so much fear within our society, right? It's just like we're constantly waiting for the shoe to drop. And that idea, not for everyone, but so much of it is that sort of collective fear about things that we don't want to happen for fear of what's to come. But we don't know what's to come. We don't know what our journey is supposed to look like. We don't know that, losing the job is actually the best thing that could have happened to us. We don't necessarily know. It's not clear to us unless you're omnipresent. But the kicker with all of this societal, familial, cultural programming is that we weren't necessarily given a choice in the matter, right? It's like we were programmed and conditioned into just, existing in this fear-based collective mentality, worrying about when the other shoe is going to drop. And again, this may or may not resonate for you. And also, please know, I'm talking this in general terms. You can very easily point out, but what about this? What about that? What about this? Yes, yes, yes. And again, right, everyone is going to see it, interpret it, and perceive it through their own particular lens. The idea here is to really explore and unpack and unearth where those beliefs around it stem from. Are those my beliefs? Is that my truth? Then why do I think this? Why do I think that? But again, another video for another day. So be sure to subscribe if you are liking what I'm dishing out. If not, totally okay too. So much of this work is breaking out of the societal conditioning, the familial conditioning, the cultural, religious, right? There's a lot of different conditioning that we experience in this life. And so much of it is intergenerational, which is why it's just sort of become the norm in our society. But we're programmed in so many different levels as to how we should think, how we should feel, how we should be, and how we should think, feel, and be in certain situations, right? When you go here, you need to be prim and proper. When you here, you can let loose. Why? Shifting the perception, as we've been discussing, can free you up to be and experience life as it comes, hopefully without or with less fear and with more openness and trust. Returning to that childlike innocence of wonder and excitement. Please also know that this is just my perception at this point in time. Don't feel like you have to take this as gospel, right? Because that would just be another person conditioning you. Let this all sink in, let it simmer, let it digest, and notice what feels aligned for you and what doesn't feel aligned. And as always, follow your own path. And an opportunity to follow your own path is whether or not you want to do another thought experiment with me. So if you've had your fill, thank you for watching. I very much appreciate it. If you want to continue on to the next thought experiment, once again, just find a comfortable posture for your body in this moment. It may be different than the one before. And so this is a thought experiment for anyone that this is resonating for you at some level. And my intention with it is to maybe begin to help shift your mindset a little bit. So settling into your posture of choice. And once again, just think about the last time that something went wrong in your life. And it will be helpful to, again, think of something that maybe happened a while back or something quote unquote minor that doesn't hold a lot of charge for you, right? So you can really sit with it, be present with it through the lens of the observer, through the witness. Now think about this experience in the context of the entire experience. And then see it through the context of the bigger picture that is your life. And as you look back on it, as you notice it through the observer, through the witness, did anything come from that thing going wrong? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. There's no need to find an answer necessarily. Please know that it's okay if you can't think of anything. If nothing's coming up for you, just know that asking the question and looking back with the intention of seeing it with a different perception might help to shift your mindset. With time, of course. And allowing yourself, if you haven't already, to let the practice go. And feel free to journal about anything that came up. Feel free to share your thoughts, your experience, what's worked for you with this idea, what hasn't worked for you. Feel free to share in the comments. Building community here, trying to build community here. And until next time, friends, stay curious.